Hi everyone, my name is Rachelle and welcome back to Rachelle Goes Global. Today I wanted to ride the wave, so to speak, of the last video that I posted, which was a story time. I have so many travel stories. I was really in the storytelling mood. And I'm also not one for over-romanticizing travel. I know that's something that is so common nowadays, especially on social media. There's a huge highlight reel of all these beautiful things that people do when they're traveling. From somebody who travels at this point basically full-time, I can tell you for a fact it should not be romanticized. It's basically like any other part of life. There are good and bad parts. Emphasis on the bad parts sometimes. So in today's video, I wanted to go over all of my worst travel day stories. By travel day, I mean the actual day that I'm transiting from one destination to the other, whether that be from my house or in between destinations, because this usually consists of at least one flight, transfer to accommodation. There's just so many things that can go wrong, and let me tell you, they usually do. I will say I used to have the worst luck, and thankfully for the past couple trips, it's actually gone so much more smoothly than I anticipated, actually like way better, so happy for that. And I hope I'm not pushing my luck by talking about these things and hoping that they're in the past. Anyway, let's just get into it so we can laugh at my expense and I can just unearth all of the joys of traveling and unromanticize it as much as possible. And we are absolutely saving the worst for last. Our first worst travel day story comes from my first actually group trip experience with EF Ultimate Break. EF is a group travel company that serves the ages of 18 to 35. I took my first trip with them this past December to celebrate New Year's Eve in Paris, and I had so much fun and I have so much to talk about. The travel day getting over was fine, it was whatever, but the travel day getting back was one of the worst just because we had pulled an all-nighter the night before and I am not good on no sleep. This trip was the time of my life. I had so much fun, I made so many memories with people, but I'm also really prone to FOMO. So I had already not slept much this whole trip just because I was like skipping naps or skipping extra sleep to do more things with my new friends that I wanted to hang out with. On our very last night in Paris, it was actually karaoke night at our hostel. We all decided to just go hang out at the bar, start singing karaoke, hang out with the other guests there. We are partying the night away. It's a random Tuesday. It's like, I think January 2nd is the day that we left for the night before. The first taxis to the airport left the next morning at 4 a.m. and our tour guide just flat out told us like, stay up all night because that is an early wake up call. You do not want to miss the taxi. You will have a terrible time. I'm used to traveling that early. That's when I typically fly domestically. So I was like ready to sleep and wake up that early anyway. But of course I skipped it for the party. Why wouldn't I? People that were not prone to FOMO and didn't care if they missed out on this party just went to bed and like woke up early, and that was fine. And I so badly wanted to be them, but I wasn't. And I have no regrets. It was just a lot. Our night goes obviously all night until 4 a.m. Our first friends leave at 4 a.m. So I'm already delirious at this point. I've had a couple beers. I haven't slept in like over 24 hours. We're also saying our final goodbyes in the lobby of this dingy hostel. We're crying, we're hugging. This is us the last night of the hostel. Like this was peak, like how we were feeling at 3 in the morning. So I get in my taxi at 6 a.m. Our tour guide gives us like to-go breakfast. It's like an orange, a granola bar, and orange juice. Of course I knock out in the taxi right away, and I'm not good at sleeping when I'm transporting at all, but I was just done. And the first thing that goes wrong on this trip, I spill my whole juice container all over my sweater, like just fully sticky all in my lap, all over my chest. It was awful. It was also the one sweater that I brought, and it was like kind of heavy and I really needed it. This is obviously winter and I'm chilly. And it also got on my pants, as I said, so it got through like my joggers. I was wearing leggings underneath. I was just sticky and not having a good time. The taxi driver drops us all off at the same terminal, and I don't remember what terminal I was supposed to be at, but it was not this one that we got dropped off at all. So the way EF works, they'll book your flights with whatever's cheapest. So some people had direct flights to the US, some people had to do like transits through Europe, some people had to transit through South America. Like it was just weird. And this experience literally has tainted Charles de Gaulle Airport, like CDG, in the worst way. I will never go back there if I can help it. I literally walked for almost an hour in each direction trying to figure out where to get to my terminal because I didn't see any signage for it. I couldn't figure out where to go. I was going up a floor, down a floor, across, back, like there was dead ends that I was hitting. It was a mess. And because I had no sleep, I was actually getting so pissed off that I couldn't figure it out. I was like calling my other friend that was like in the same taxi as me, and I was like, do you know where your gate is? Like I just fed up. I was about to cry. I finally like Google a good map of CDG. Like I don't know why I hadn't come up with one in the first place, but it shows me that my gate is like another 30-minute walk in the opposite direction, like all the way down this hallway around a bend, and that's why I couldn't find it. Then I mentioned I'm also wearing Doc Martens, like platform boots, so just not having a good time. I get to security and check in. I only have a carry-on and a personal item. They make me weigh my bags, which I was not prepared for. Thankfully that goes well. It's like the only thing that went well this entire day. And I walked my actual gate. My first flight's to Amsterdam. It's another like string of loops and whirls, and I can't figure out where I'm going. There's one set of bathrooms that's all the way back by the entrance of security, which I don't find out until I'm through all the way to the gates and like looking around for a new one. Mind you, at this point, I'm still wearing my juice-soaked sweater and joggers. So I go to the bathroom, I change, I'm sweating at this point. I go back to the gate and I like almost fall asleep at the table. Neither my boarding pass nor my passport scan at the gate. I'm freaking out. I'm literally about to cry again because I'm just so delirious. I just want to be on this plane and start my travel day. It takes me like 10 minutes to actually board. I'm the last one on the plane. I get in the window and I knock out. We get to Amsterdam and I just want to be so honest with you. I barely remember being in Amsterdam. It honestly feels like a fever dream. Thankfully, customs took like 0.2 seconds because I was really nervous about that, hearing about how busy the Amsterdam airport had been and how like backed up it was. So I get to my gate and I fall asleep laying on my backpack like this, just at the gate, fully passed out. Don't remember a wink of it. I genuinely woke up to the last and final boarding calls for my flight back to the US and I like out of my sleep. That's how bad it was. I get on. Once on board, you would think everything was fine. Alas, it was not. At the very last minute, my seatmate comes in. It's like only 2 because like on Delta's planes, it's 2, 3, 2. So she sits down. She's so drunk. And she admits this to me. Like, it's not like I'm just profiling her. She was like, they asked me if I was drunk and they asked me how much I had to drink. And I told them I only had 8 beers. Like, she was inebriated. Was slurring her words. She was telling me so many personal things about her. She was ordering more drinks, which I'm honestly surprised that they gave them to her considering they questioned her at the gate. I don't know. I barely remember this flight as well, but I think this is honestly the best sleep I've ever gotten on a plane. I've never been good at sleeping on planes, but obviously from this, you can tell that I slept well. I made it back. I proceeded to sleep for the next 3 days. I was miserable. I had nothing going for me in the sleep department, but honestly, I would not change it for the world. The memories I made were so worth it. Karaoke night was worth it, and my first EF trip, honestly, was great, aside from that. Next story comes from one of the first solo trips that I took on my little journey. This was back to my college town, which is State College, Pennsylvania. I went to Penn State. I had already had a trip planned there, but I had started a remote job like the last day that I was there, so it just kind of worked out that I was flying out later that night. But the day before, and the day before my first day on this job, Allegiant canceled the flight, canceled the route from State College to Sanford, Orlando. So they made me book out of Harrisburg, which is like an hour and a half away. I'd done it before, I was used to it. The Harrisburg airport's also small, so I wasn't that worried about it. The only problem with this travel day was it was supposed to snow later that night. It hadn't started snowing yet, and my ride was on the way, but he literally got into a car accident on the way to get me. It wasn't bad, it was just a little fender bender, but he slipped on like some ice and he like busted up his tire and he couldn't drive his car. Like, it was inoperable. Obviously at this point I started to get worried. He was the only one that was able to take me. Like, my other friends either don't drive or they weren't able to because of school. So have like no clothes with me, personal item only. Because it's Allegiant and it's between 2 small regional airports, the next flight's not for like 4 days. So thankfully the friend whose apartment I worked out of earlier that day said that he was able to take me. I was like, I'll pay you money, I'll buy you dinner, whatever. But we go to dinner on the way to the airport, and that was our grave mistake. When we walk out of this restaurant, the entire landscape is just white. It's flurrying, it's coming down. It like feels like an apocalyptic movie. And it was also nighttime, so it was sticking and it was cold. It was awesome. So I asked him too, I'm like, are you comfortable doing this again? It's not the worst thing if I can't get home, but I was just set on it at this point. My friend said he's okay with it. He grew up in Pennsylvania. He's like, whatever, I got this. But we get on the road and it was bad. Like, so bad. We are going 15 max on the freeway in miles. It is literally so dangerous to be on this road. My friend's like, no, like, I got this. It's honestly fine. It's not even that bad. I'm like quaking in my boots. I'm from the West Coast. Like, this is, I don't drive in the snow. I don't like it. By the time we're halfway through, our ETA has gone up by like over an hour because we're going so slow. We can't even make a lane change without like sliding. At this point, my flight leaves in literally 20 minutes because we left late, because it's a small airport. I didn't think we need that much time. I grossly underestimated the amount of time we would need. So I started trying to contact like people at the Harrisburg airport to let them know that I was coming, but that the plane like cannot leave without me. I was even tweeting them. I was just trying to find any regular person to talk to because since it's a small airport, I know that they're gonna close and my flight was the last one of the night. Wouldn't you know, my worst fears came true as soon as I rolled up to the airport. Security is closed. I hear them calling for like group 3 for boarding. I start sobbing on the floor. I call my friend and I'm like, can you just wait outside for a second? I call other friends in the area to see if I can stay with them for the night. Like, I'm just full blown panicking because we can't go back up to State College. It's snowing. We can't do anything around the area. I even called my parents and they were like not answering, so that was great. Like, no one was there. I was a wreck. However, one of the TSA agents I think is getting off shift and he starts walking out of the area like after you deboard a plane and you walk to the main terminal. I do my little moment and I just flag him down and I'm like, hey, hey bestie, because I'm like, tears are streaming down my face. Like, it was so bad. He's very nice. He asked me like, what's going on? Are you okay? And I'm like, my flight's boarding. That one, the one that you can hear, that last one. Yeah, that's mine. I'm supposed to be on that. Somehow he gets somebody to come. Like, he literally radios somebody and she's there in 5 minutes. And I was like, thank you so much. They open the gates of security. It's like a movie. This woman turns on all the machines. I feel like I'm in a doctor's office. I throw my bags through. I think they were just praying that I had nothing on me at this point because like nothing was loading and they had to get me on the plane. She also looks at me and goes, any reason why you're this late? And I'm like, oh, we had to drive in the snow and Trump College, my flight got canceled. Oh, I'm sorry. She didn't give it. She didn't care. She didn't care at all. So while I was going through security, they also tell the gate agents like at my gate that I'm coming and I'm there. And they're like, oh, just give her like 5 minutes. Because at this point, final boarding calls have passed like 5 minutes ago and they're like ready to shut the door. The gate agents have the audacity to radio to the entire airport, final boarding calls for flight blah 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 back to Orlando. You have 1 minute to get here before we close the door. And my gate was at the end of this like row. So they make me run. They're like staring at me while I'm sprinting and I'm like, like, oh my god, it was so embarrassing. I'm still embarrassed talking about this. I get on, they make deathly eye contact with me. They tell me to sit wherever the I can find a seat. I sit down in the first empty row I see. I don't make eye contact with anybody on this flight. I don't even listen to music. I sit in silence for 2.5 hours. Everything was fine. I get home, I get in my car since I had parked. I again drive in silence home and I go to bed and it's like nothing happened. So yeah, that became a very fun story to tell the rest of my coworkers the next day when I showed up for like my little remote job at 9 in the morning and they asked how my first day was. So just know, regional airports, the security closes early. There are no direct phone numbers to people at the airport and you should not drive in a snowstorm if you have a flight to catch later. Those are my lessons. And my last worst travel day story is the worst, and that's why we saved it for last. This was my travel day from Newark, New Jersey back home. So this trip started out fun. We went to New Jersey to go to New York to go see Harry Styles play at MSG, which was amazing. We flew in Saturday, we were leaving Monday, so I only took off Monday and we just like flew in early Saturday. Monday we were already exhausted. My mom didn't want to do anything, that's what I brought with me. We just like sat in this pizza restaurant for 2 hours, then started to make our way over from Grand Central Station. The first thing that went wrong was I sat in a nice little chair and I tried one of those fancy QR code seat delivery things from one of the restaurants. And I do this because Newark Airport is so busy and I didn't want to lose my spot and my mom was somewhere else, so we were just like hanging out and I like would have had nowhere else to sit because there's so many flights like supposed to be departing soon. So I tried to order food. I spent like $50 on it. No one came. Like it was over an hour and a half and I was just waiting. I kind of got distracted, but at that point I was like really hungry and I realized I never showed up. And then when I went to walk over, the restaurant was closed. I had to fight for like 2 weeks to get a refund. It was so annoying, but that was only the beginning of our strife. Right after that, we found out about the first delay. This is giving me horrible flashbacks. I like need a minute. So basically, just picture you getting a delay notification and then the hundreds to thousands of people in all the surrounding gates around you also getting a delay notification. And you just kept seeing the boards change, like delayed, delayed, delayed. My mom's like, our flight's getting delayed. Our flight got delayed, I think, about 6 times before it was finally canceled. It's fully gone. By the time that my dinner debacle happened, we get delayed like 3 or 4 times and I'm like panicking and we're trying to figure out like what to do next, how to feel. All of the actual dinner restaurants are closing, like they're not taking any more orders, or the lines like astronomically through the terminal because all of these people are stuck in this airport. So I literally had to get a bag of Cheez-Its and like pretzels for dinner because that's all, it was just the self-service shit that was open. I was miserable. So I really don't know how to explain how horrifying this experience was. Basically what happened, and I looked this all up like the next week after I was not like triggered by the events of it anymore. Basically the FAA and the airports called it an act of God. Like they did not know what happened. It was just the perfect alignment of a series of unfortunate events that shut the airport down for like 6 hours. That day there was a huge thunderstorm rolling over and Newark had like, I think it was like 10 plus international arrivals arriving at the same exact time. And then like a bunch of flights that were supposed to take off, like international and domestic, like all at once. Like this was like the pop in time. Once all these flights grounded and we were about to take off, like it was just the weather was wrong. And then like there was a big pilot strike, like people were walking out. Like I don't know what was going on. Something was in the air. It was an act of God. So there were people that were stuck on the tarmac for like 5 to 6 hours, like sitting on a plane. So as much as I can talk about how horrible my experience was, we were lucky because we were not sitting out there. We were sitting in the comfort of the airport in the AC with like a floor. That's all I'll say. Obviously, the lines at this point are also backed up to go get your flight rebooked. My mom's waiting in one. She keeps calling me like, they have this one. Oh, just kidding. They have this one. Oh, just kidding. And we're like, what is going on? Finally, after 3 more hours, at this point, it's like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., my mom comes back and she's like, they can't book us on any flight to Orlando, but they booked us on this flight to Dulles, which is in Virginia. And it was leaving at like 11 p.m. Like it was so random on a random other carrier, like a new carrier. But no, we don't just get rebooked from Dulles and then to Dulles to Orlando. We get rebooked on 3 new flights. We have to go to Dulles and then to Chicago and then to Orlando, and the layovers are brutal. Plus, did I mention I also had to tell my toxic boss I needed another day off via email at like 2 in the morning. When my mom and I finally got back to Orlando at like 3 p.m. the next day, we were both just sitting there in silence. We didn't talk. We didn't do anything. We didn't even talk to my dad. This was just an overwhelming, horrible experience, and I now have huge beef with the Newark airport, and that is honestly my worst travel story to date. I hope I never have to go through anything like that ever again. Shivering in the Dulles airport, having Cheez-Its for dinner, getting home like 18 hours later than you were supposed to, water under the bridge. It's fine. So those were some of my worst travel day stories ever. I do have many more from the past I could talk about. I'd be happy to rehash them because now it's kind of funny looking back. It wasn't at the time, but now it is. And as I said, my travel days have gotten a lot better. I don't know if that's just like my luck turning or what, but they're going pretty well, so let's hope I'm not jinxing it by going over this stuff again. But that is all I have for this week's video. Make sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram at RachelGoesGlobal so you can see more of my daily content of all my travels. Also, be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more from me. Comment down below your worst travel day story, also your least favorite airport. Mine, still the Charles de Gaulle airport in Paris. Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week with a new video. Bye!